okay, for all you conspiracy theorists, the dots are starting to come together. If the information is true and the Russians do have their hooks firmly into Donald Trump, that would explain a lot. Okay, number one, Rex Tillerson. He is going to have some issues tomorrow at his confirmation hearings. Why? Because the Russians like him and he likes the Russians, okay? If the Russians are the ones that are calling the shots here on Donald Trump's cabinet, it makes a lot of sense. They would want Tillerson because they have a great working relationship with him. They would want Bannon, okay, because Bannon is about tearing down the U.S. government. Okay, they would want all of the various secretaries of the various departments to be people who are against the very departments that they're going to run. Okay, so that knocks that down. Yeah, you got a couple of war hawks out there, and Russia knows that the American people are, if anything, not into war. So they basically neuter basically the Department of Defense, etc. The intelligence people, okay, who are putting out information and who have warned Trump, they're all pissed off at Donald Trump. So the Russians have succeeded there by having Donald Trump basically cast aspersions on them. So it looks like all the dots are coming together. Now, Tillerson tomorrow is going to be in damage control mode, and we already know what he's going to say when he's called before that committee. Check this out.
Like Donald Trump's nominee for Secretary of State, ExxonMobil CEO Rex Tillerson will say at his confirmation hearing tomorrow that Russia poses a danger and the United States must be clear-eyed about its relationship with Russia. That is according to the presidential transition team. Joining us from Washington tonight is a member of the committee that will be questioning Secretary of State nominee Rex Tillerson tomorrow. In fact, this committee will have a huge role in shaping the first portion of the Trump administration. Connecticut Democratic Senator Chris Murphy is with us from the Hill. He's a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator Murphy, I have to begin with these potentially explosive allegations in this story tonight. Were you, beyond reading them, as we all have, were you briefed on them as a member of the committee?
No, we have not been briefed on these allegations. The director of the FBI and James Clapper will be before the Senate in an all-senators briefing later this week, and so I expect that either we will be briefed or we will ask questions about the allegations at that time. Listen, I hope and I pray that these allegations aren't true. Obviously, many of us have been scratching our heads for over a year now trying to understand why Donald Trump has become a very purposeful ally of a vicious tyrant in Vladimir Putin, why he seems to defend Russia and their actions at every turn. I hope that this isn't the explanation, because if it is, it's the biggest story in the history of the United States. But regardless of whether these allegations are true, whether there's a shred of evidence to them, tomorrow's hearings on Tillerson are going to be our first opportunity to really sit down and try to ask those questions of why. Why is Donald Trump seeking an alliance with someone this vicious who wishes nothing but ill will on the United States and Vladimir Putin?
And I think it's fair to say, at least based on public statements and press reports, that Tillerson was selected in part for his relationship, years long-standing, with Russia in general and Putin specifically.
Yeah, what concerns a lot of us in Tillerson, who clearly is, an experienced businessman, someone who, does have a lot of relationships with important people around the world, is that he has no experience in diplomacy. Diplomacy is very different than cutting oil and gas deals with countries like Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Chad, and Russia. And you have a president, the first in our nation's history, who has no experience in diplomacy, who has a national security advisor advisor who is an outright conspiracy theorist, and a Secretary of State who's never done this before either. And so, again, distinct and separate from these policy questions, the lack of experience at the highest levels of American foreign policy once January 20th hits is incredibly alarming. And again, we'll be able to get some answers as to why he was picked other than his relationship with Putin in our questions tomorrow.
The committee mathematically is really a razor's edge for nominees in that while you in the Democratic Party are in the minority, it takes one Republican switchover to block a nominee. Having said that, after you dispense with Secretary-designate Tillerson, are you calling for hearings on this topic we're discussing here tonight regarding Mr. Trump?
Well, I think we all have to sit back and sort through the reports. Many of us have not even read the document, and I think we're going to get a chance to be briefed on this in a closed hearing later this week. And so let us step back and take a little bit of a breath before we call for anything like open hearings in the United States Congress. So I think these are serious allegations, right? As serious as they get. They are totally and utterly disqualifying for President-elect Trump if they are true. But right now, there doesn't seem to be nearly enough for us to be stepping forward and calling for hearings. We need to get a lot more information.
Having gone through the math on the Foreign Relations Committee, are you in the business of making any predictions? Do you think Rex Tillerson makes it through your committee?
So right now, I don't understand how Republicans like Marco Rubio, who's on the committee, and then in the Senate writ large, people like John McCain and Lindsey Graham vote for Tillerson. Clearly, the intent of the Trump administration, which is going to be represented by this new Secretary of State, is to move away from President Obama's tough stance against Russia. They are clearly setting up a scenario in which they are going to roll back some or all of these sanctions. And so if Tillerson can't make a very clear, clean promise tomorrow to Rubio and to McCain and to Graham that they're not only going to maintain the existing sanctions, but increase sanctions because of Putin's activity in this election, I don't know how those guys who have been railing against Obama for how soft they claim he has been on Putin, how they can vote for Tillerson. So I think Tillerson still is on a knife edge. I mean, if it fails, it'll only fail by a few votes. But I don't see how all these Republicans who have been killing Obama for being so soft on Russia can turn around and vote for Tillerson.
All right. Well, as I said, the math is interesting, and we will hear much more about this tomorrow. You won't see us, but we'll see you. We'll be back on the air at 9 a.m. for live coverage of the hearing in your committee. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, thank you very much for coming on the air with us tonight.
Thanks.
All right, so let's, as I indicated earlier, let's go through all of the cabinet picks that Donald Trump has made. Obviously, we want to start with Rex Tillerson, okay? This guy has no diplomatic experience whatsoever. This guy's a business guy. As indicated, yeah, he does know how to negotiate deals regarding oil and gas, energy reserves, etc. But as far as diplomacy on bringing sides together, stopping wars, stuff like that, absolutely no experience, okay? So, number one, in my opinion, that's a bad choice. Okay, you got Jeff Sessions, who's a racist, plain and simple, and his job is to go in and create further dissension between the various people in the country, i.e. the white people and various minorities throughout the country. And I'm going to do a video on a letter that another racist, Strom Thurmond, received from Coretta Scott King, where she begged him not to consider Jeff Sessions for that federal judgeship, and Strom Thurmond never entered the letter into the public record. You got the educational secretary choice, Betsy DeVos. She's a billionaire, and she is absolutely anti-public schools. She wants the whole country to go to charter schools or basic homeschooling. She has nothing good to say about common school, period. I'm sorry, public school, period. Then you got the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Tom Price. If there's anybody that you don't want running Health and Human Services, it's pretty much Tom Price. He's been a longtime critic of Obamacare, and he's got some Mickey Mouse plan that he wants to put into place that is an absolute disaster. of the non-military people, the person probably most qualified, and I hate to say it, is Mitch McConnell's wife, Elaine Chao. Okay, she was a former labor secretary for Bush, and now she's going to jump into the Department of Transportation. Again, she doesn't have a lot of experience, but at least she's used to running, a large federal department. Here's a great one, Steve Mnuchin. This guy is up for the Secretary of the Treasury, and his claim to fame was, number one, working for Goldman Sachs, number two, buying a bank that was distressed with guarantees from the federal government that they would make good his losses. He turned around and foreclosed on like 30, I think it was something like 36 or 37,000 homeowners, some of them illegally, where they lied to the homeowners that were in distress. Then he turned around, sold the bank back to the federal government, and made a huge profit. He also was the person that was in charge of fundraising for Donald Trump. So this guy is a rat in rat's clothing, okay? You got the Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross, okay? This is another billionaire, right? This guy is known as the king of bankruptcy. So in my mind, if he's got to deal with commerce, he's the king of bankruptcy. All he wants to do is break down as much of the economy as he can, and then funnel out to his buddies the restructuring work of failed companies, okay, in order for, his partners in crime, not necessarily him, he'll get his payback later, but to his partners in crime so they can make a ton. Now, as far as some of the military guys, James Mathis, okay, for Secretary of Defense, is by all intents and purposes a fairly good pick. He's got large respect from not only the armed services but the intelligence agencies, and he has kept his mouth shut through all of the flap between the various intelligence agencies and Donald Trump. Here's a great one. Dr. Ben Carson, Secretary for Housing and Urban Development. Ben Carson has no experience running anything other than Johns Hopkins, and he didn't even run the whole thing. He ran a portion of it, okay? He's got no experience in housing and urban development. He's got no experience running any type of a large government organization. This was a terrible pick. Then you have, sorry about that. Then you got for Department of Homeland Security, General John Kelly, another military guy, 4-star general. He's got a lot of experience leading troops, but I don't know about anything else. He supposedly is strong for his knowledge of border issues and the drug trade in Central and South America. So, that in itself might not be a bad pick. Here's another one. Representative Ryan Zinkel out of Montana. This guy's only claim to fame is that he's buddies with Donald Trump Jr., and he's an avid hunter and outdoorsman, okay? He was involved with damn near nothing as far as sinking his teeth into areas that the Department of the Interior would deal with. Another winner for Secretary of Energy is Rick, I can't remember the name of the third department that I want to get rid of, Perry. Oh, by the way, the department that he wanted to get rid of, the Department of Energy. So he's been put in charge of potentially of that department. You got Rance Priebus, who is up for Chief of Staff, and he, again, another guy with no experience. He's got no White House experience. Yeah, he was the head of the RNC, but his claim to fame was that he's a numbers cruncher. This guy was like a supercharged accountant because the RNC was having some financial issues right after they got rid of Richard Steele, put this guy in charge, and he went on steroids raising money for the Republican Party, and that's pretty much why they love him. But I did a video on him the other day, and his hair is starting to turn gray from all of the attention and the issues, and it's going to get grayer depending on how bad this gets. I don't really have anything too bad to say about the ambassador to the United Nations. That's Governor Nikki Haley. You know, she is what she is, and she did a pretty good job coming through and getting that Confederate flag finally taken down from the Capitol, the State House, South Carolina. Another real winner, another billionaire, for the administrator for the SBA, Small Business Administration, Linda McMahon, and her claim to fame is being the CEO of WWE. Okay, now she has worked with various international organizations dealing with education and other philanthropic foundations, but business is business, and I don't know what she knows about making loans out to small businesses, obviously, so we'll have to see. Then you have administrator for the EPA, Scott Pruitt. This is one of your top winners. This guy is going to be running an agency that he is currently suing. This guy is out of Oklahoma, has always been a critic of the EPA, and now he's going to be in a position to cripple it. You have, for National Security Advisor, which is a non-cabinet position, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. This guy is one of the ultimate conspiracy theorists. If Breitbart or one of the far right or alternate right or white supremacist blogs put something out, this guy is all over it. Okay? He loves taking stuff from InfoWars and putting it out there. Fox News picks it up, and then all of a sudden it's quote unquote a confirmed source. You got Mike Pompeo up for the CIA director, and this guy is a conservative's conservative. So as far as him being in charge of the CIA, it works out perfectly because Trump has already announced that he wants to pare back the CIA, reduce funding and reduce staff for it, which in effect basically is to neuter the CIA. Now, he still hasn't picked a Secretary of Agriculture or a Secretary of Veterans Affairs. So I'm kind of interested in seeing who is going to turn up for those two spots. This is turning into a shitstorm.